the Flying L Ranch, which was started by Colonel Jack Lapham, who had been a pilot in World War II with the Army Air Corps. His father financed the first 2 oil wells that were drilled for what later became Texaco. So Colonel Jack and his wife Lucy, they came to Bandera in 1946 with $750,000 to start up this dream they had of a place where people could come to learn to fly. With their association with Texaco Oil, the first logo that was put on the side of the hangar was the Texaco emblem with wings, which normally, with the wings, you knew that there would be an airstrip on the ranch. Before World War II, Colonel Jack had owned and operated a place called Hangar 6 in Uvalde that trained close to 10,000 pilots, which eventually flew in World War II. One of the first buildings that was built on the Flying L was the Pilot's Lounge, and the Pilot's Lounge is where everyone would meet. And in this picture you can see that in the design on the sides, the beams were meant to look a little bit like the wing of an airplane. For many years, this building was believed to have been designed by the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright. This is a rendering of the Pilot's Lounge that shows a restaurant in the back and a building off to the right-hand side, which was not totally used. It was designed by Smith, Pitts, and McPherson out of San Antonio, who had designed the Japanese gardens and also part of the transit system that's used in San Antonio. The hangar and the Pilot's Lounge have been in many pictures over the years, and this was a rendering of the Pilot's Lounge before it was built. The villas on the ranch were believed to have been designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, who was known to have been a friend of Colonel Jack. The villas were designed to look a little bit like an airplane, and they all faced north, so when you flew over, you would see these buildings and know you were at the Flying L Ranch. Some of the aficionados of Frank Lloyd Wright that have been to the ranch say that the villas have many characteristics of Frank Lloyd Wright. One of them is the center block that has seashells embedded in it, and it was kind of a pink color, and that was one of the things that Frank Lloyd Wright had used in the past. The villas are now enclosed because people want air conditioning. The bedrooms, which were off to the side of the villas, those were supposedly the wings of the airplane, and they were just screened-in porches at the time. And the ceiling that you can barely see up the top left-hand corner was also representative of Frank Lloyd Wright. The grand opening of the ranch was in 1947 with a fashion show, and they built a runway down the center of the Pilot's Lounge for the event. And a guy by the name of Stanley Marcus put on this fashion show. Stanley had a partner by the name of Neiman. In the top left-hand corner of this picture, you can see a guy that would have taken the pictures for Life magazine. This was the type of camera that would have been needed to have the resolution for pictures to put in Life magazine. There were a couple of the judges. One was Mike Romanoff. He had Romanoff Restaurant on Rodeo Drive in Hollywood, California, where folks like Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe used to frequent all the time. And the gal with the tennis racket, she was there because Jack Kramer was one of the other judges for the show, and he was the world champion tennis player of the day. D.D. Johnson was one of the designers. D.D. did designs for the Leave It to Beaver show and the George and Gracie Allen show. After the fashion show, they had a big night and a barbecue. Also, they had a dance in the hangar, which today is the golf course maintenance building. Every once in a while at the ranch, something exciting will happen. Somebody will give you some new information. Well, one day, one of our maintenance men gave me these 2 books. They were hardbound books from Pilot magazine from 1958 and 1959. And he said, you need to look and see if there's anything to do with the ranch. So I looked through 1958, didn't find anything. And then I went to 1959 and turned the page, and here was a picture of Colonel Jack Lapham's favorite aircraft, which was a Beechcraft Twin, and the Pilot's Lounge in the background. So who are some of the famous people that have stayed here at the Flying L Ranch over the years? We call them legends of the Flying L. People like John Wayne, while he was filming the movie The Alamo. Gregory Peck, here's a movie you might remember. Tex Ritter was a country and western singer back in the day. Slim Pickens was in many of the old cowboy movies. Robert Fuller also. James Caan did a photo shoot down at the creek. He didn't like the idea that he was wet the whole time. Buck Owens, also Willie Nelson. In the Legends room here at the main house, you can see some of the photographs. Well, one day in the main house, I was greeted by a gal, and I was showing her around, and we were walking up the hallway of the main house, and she was looking at some of the pictures, and she saw one picture, and she pointed at it, and she said, "You see that gal on the horse? That's me." Well, after visiting with her for a while, I found out her name was Ruth Herr, and she had ridden with her girlfriend a horse and buggy all the way from Chicago to Bandera, Texas. The radio stations followed their trip the whole way, and when they got to Waco, where their destination was, they were greeted by 3,000 people. It was a big day, but then later they said, "We didn't come to Texas to see dairymen and dairy cows. We came to Texas to see cowboys and cattle," and they told them, "You need to go to Bandera, Texas, which is the cowboy capital of the world." Ruth worked here for 2 years, and while she was here, they filmed one of the series of the Cisco Kid, which would have been around 1949. During the filming of the Cisco Kid, Ruth's father passed away. She had to go back to Chicago, and then she received a telegram from the Cisco Kid and the crew, Leo Carrillo, giving their condolences. Well, that's a small piece of the history of the Flying L. My name's Buck Shannon. I'm here at the ranch. I hope you'll stop by for a visit sometime. Let us show you around. We're at flyingl.com, and we are the Flying L Ranch Resort in Bandera, Texas, the cowboy capital of the world, and thanks for stopping by.